Welcome back to OneThird. This is episode number 33. Thank you guys for joining again. So today I kind of want to talk about trust with you guys. There's a bunch of different avenues that we can go into this when it comes to trusting ourselves, partners, family members, random people, because in the long run, you have to put a little bit of your trust in blindfolded sometimes. You know what I mean? But I wanted to ask you guys what you think about trust. So Jackson, when you think about trust or whatever the case, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
So for me, being as independent as I am, like an independent thinker, I would definitely say that I trust myself more than I trust other people. And that's just inherent through the things that I've been through. It's easier to trust yourself, I feel. But I feel like trusting yourself is something that only comes with, like, being truly alone. Like, when you're alone, you have nobody else to trust. So at the end of the day, you got to start relying on yourself. And I feel like that's something that most people don't go through until they move out. Until you are actually, like, you're making your own decisions, and it's every decision that you make, you don't have to go ask somebody else before you do that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I understand.
Like, you got to actually just make your decisions and trust that that decision is the right one.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's one area where I'm good at. I'm good at trusting myself. I'm good at building that relationship with myself where I don't question my gut. I just follow it. And I feel like a lot of people, they struggle following their gut because they have a whole bunch of background noise, other people kind of deciding what they should do with their life, i.e. maybe your parents putting pressure on you to go to school, or grandparents putting pressure on you to have kids, or whatever area it is. I just feel like people, to a certain degree, don't really trust themselves as much as they should.
I understand. I just want to add, it could also be, I feel like people are going to relate to that a lot, because even if they are, say, like, at home, whatever the case too, there's a lot of the times where, like, you're alone up here. You know what I mean? So I feel like people are going to relate to that aloneness. Even if they are surrounded by outside stuff, they're still, like, alone up here and maybe battling with that gut instinct, the trust and stuff. But continue. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, but that's only one form of trust. Obviously, like, trust comes in many different forms. You have to first learn to trust yourself before you can trust anybody else. And trusting other people, there's also different forms to that. Like, there's trusting your partner. There's trusting your friend. There's trusting your family. But then, like you said earlier, there's also that blind trust where when you go to the doctor's office, you have to trust that doctor, he knows what he's doing. When you go to the dentist, you have to blindly trust in that dentist to know that they studied in school and they know what they're looking at.
Sure, you got to be making sure that bus driver is looking out on the road too. You know what I'm saying? It could go anywhere.
The pharmacist, the grocer, and every job, we have to blindly trust that person is there for the right reason.
100%.
For the job. And I feel like that brings us to the one area that I feel people have too much trust. I feel like people trust other people too much.
I know what you're saying. Like other people that they might not know. Type thing,
like,
even if they do know.
Pardon?
Go ahead.
Rebuttal?
For example, if you, like, trust somebody, right? You're going to trust them so much to where it's like you expect him or her to do things where it's like it's really not that deep. So I think, like, if you trust yourself a lot, you're not going to really matter if you trust that person because you're so mentally strong yourself where it doesn't really you don't need that. If anything, it's just an extra add-on, you know what I mean?
For sure.
You don't have to really tell them everything that you know about yourself or about this, or it can just be like someone where you can just, like, talk to a little bit, but not really too much to where you want him or her to trust you.
I understand. I think just before you say, I just want to get this out of the way. I think that people miss like construe trust and a little bit of, like, reassurance sometimes.
That's what I mean.
They get mixed.
Yeah.
And that goes into what I was saying. People trust other people too much. They don't trust themselves enough.
Sure.
And when you like you were saying, when you trust somebody to a certain point, you kind of grow an expectation of them in your mind.
That's what I mean.
And when they don't follow that expectation,
bro,
you could be let down.
Yeah, it's like
you could be let down. So there definitely is a happy balance that you have to walk, because you can't have a relationship without trust. But you also don't want to put too much trust into somebody.
For sure.
Kind of like if you can't help somebody that doesn't want to be helped, kind of.
100%.
You know what I mean?
100%.
You can try your best. You can do your best to try to help that person or whatever, but won't work if they don't give you that.
Yeah, trust definitely has to be reciprocated, for sure.
Exactly.
Sure. That's when that needs to be mutual. Definitely, like you said, reciprocated on both sides. Trust can be a little bit blinding at points, you know what I mean? Like you said, if you on both sides. If you don't trust somebody enough, they can be a good person. It could be a homie. Maybe if I didn't trust you guys for just some damn reason, but you guys are good people. You know what I mean?
And
I
it
could
kinda
not trust
comes
them
with
enough.
consistency.
For sure.
You
That's
know
actually a
what I
good
mean?
point. You
Like-
need to come day in, day out. No, I'm loyal to you. You're the girlfriend, boyfriend, best friend,
You
family
gotta-
member,
It
whatever.
takes a while to like. I even probably tested you guys a couple times. You don't even know about to see if you know what I mean.
100%.
Probably you guys same thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, there's been stuff where it like reminds me. I'm like, oh man, these guys are real ones, man. I ain't gotta
Yeah.
worry about
Or
nothing
if you
like
go through
that.
stuff together, it kind of grows from there too. You
That's
know what I
true,
mean?
too.
And that brings me into my last point.
That's a good point, but go ahead.
Trust is way, way harder than it is to grow, opposed to breaking it.
Oh man,
Because once you
100%.
break it,
it's so hard.
it's like a vase.
yeah.
When you drop a vase on the ground, it shatters, right? You can glue all the pieces back together.
it's just not the same.
that thing's gonna be ugly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But at the
That's
same
how
time,
trust
it's-
goes.
at the
It'll
same
be
time-
repaired, but it'll never be the same.
Yeah, you're
It'll never be back to its original form.
So you guys don't think it's good to like kind of go through, like obviously not break that because that's a big one, or like to test the loyalty or whatever. But like sometimes you have to go through a little bit of hardships to make it stronger. Do you know what I mean?
I was gonna
It's
say
not gonna be perfect the whole way through.
you can relate it to two things. You can relate it to like that jar, and once you break the jar, that jar will never be the same. Or you can relate it to, let's say, a car part, right? That the axle snaps or whatever the case. This little piece of metal snaps, and you weld that thing together. It broke it for the meantime, but it needed to be rebonded, and now it's stronger than it's ever been.
That's what I mean.
You know what I mean? It can
Yeah.
happen both ways because I have lost Brianna's trust before. I've done bad things. I've done stuff that I shouldn't have done and lost her trust. But now I've had it sucked to get that trust back. It was hard. Like
Yeah.
you said, extremely hard, about 4 times harder than any other trust that I've had to earn. And I just slowly,
Keep
slowly,
and then
day
that's
in,
what-
day
yeah,
out.
That's what I mean.
Like you were saying,
Mhm.
consistency, that plays a good
Yeah.
role. But now it's like stronger than it's ever been. But I don't know if it would have ever got there if I
If you
didn't
go
lose
through
it.
that, yeah.
But there's such a weird balance because if I
It
do
is.
something too bad, then it could be all gone.
Oh,
and that's
gone.
what I was
And-
just about to say. Trust is repairable, but once it's broken, I don't think it'll ever be the same. Like the things that you're talking about, they're like minor chips, minor
that's true.
cracks.
Yeah.
Would you say it's like you
Something-
said, repairable but not replaceable?
Repairable but not replaceable.
Yeah, I like that.
You can put if you put a little chip on the vase, the corner has a little chip in it. You're not gonna
Okay.
notice the little chip.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It gets a tiny little crack at the bottom.
Mhm.
You're not gonna notice the little crack.
Exactly.
But if you drop it, and it shatters,
the big one.
and
Yeah.
that's kind of like there's a lot of different things that'll do that for somebody's trust. Obviously, people trust people at different levels, and some people never trust other people just based on the things that happen in their life. But even if you don't trust other people, I think it's still good to trust in your own ability as a person, because if you don't trust in anybody else, at least at the end of the day, you have yourself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you don't, like, you're not going to have somebody in your life your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
There will be a point at your life where you will be alone,
For sure.
and you got to learn to kind of enjoy being alone to a certain extent.
Mhm.
Enjoy knowing that no matter what happens in life, I'll be good.
Or even say like, for example, like let's say we're in ME, right? A good hooper or whatever. A teacher's trying their best to like give you what you need, but if you don't want to like work like very very hard, then you're not gonna get it. You know what I
For
mean?
sure.
So you gotta like really trust yourself to like want that as much as you really say you do. Do you
Yeah,
know
yeah,
what
yeah.
I mean? Like you have to kind of go
know
get
what
it.
you're
You know what I'm saying?
Like talk
Or
is
even
cheap type thing.
Yeah, talking shit free. Even like I know so many people that I could say right now, like fucked up their chances because it's like they're not actually serious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not actually serious. So
That's like a level of commitment to yourself, and within committing to that, you have to trust in yourself. And
Mhm.
you know what I'm
give
saying?
that to give out.
I know what you're saying.
like grind for it. Do you know what I mean?
It's hard to relate that. Like it's hard to explain that with trust, but it has everything to do with trust.
Yeah.
Trust
what I mean?
isn't trust, just like love isn't one emotion.
So
Yeah.
many things I'd say.
You can't trust is the simplified version of commitment, loyalty, friendship. What else?
Honesty, all that, man. It's
yeah. Trust
I don't
is
know,
just
like-
everything combined, and that I guess that's my opinion on what trust is to me. Trust, just to wrap up my own opinion, I think everybody should trust themselves more than they trust other people. It might sound selfish, but at the end of the
Have to, I
day,
think.
it's your
If you
life.
trust someone more than you trust yourself, something's wrong.
Yeah,
That's true.
I
You know
think
what I
I agree
mean?
with that. And now I'm gonna bring the topic to you. I'm gonna say, like, what is trust to you, Bashar?
I'd say trust to me has a little bit part of like everything, like you guys say. I'd say it has to come with like loyalty,
Mm-hmm.
like just personally believing in yourself. Like for a little example, kind of like I'm gonna try to kind of talk about like towards it being like a success thing, right? So like if you try to, you really gotta trust yourself to want to actually get something. So like if you want to be whatever you want to do or whatever, you really gotta trust yourself more than you trust somebody else. Because at the end of the day, they might not be there as long as you think they'll be. Do you know what I mean? So I really think that if you wanna like do good, just honestly like trust yourself more. You know what I mean? Trust yourself more. Trust like what you can do, the abilities that you have. You know what I mean? Don't ever like doubt yourself, because then that's where it just goes downhill. So like,
never mind, continue. My
so
bad.
it's like like I know it's hard sometimes. You know, people, it's easier said than done. People may think it's easy, hard, but it's like dig through. You know what I mean? Try to find that meaning of what it is.
Sometimes it's tough.
Yeah.
And just to add on top of that, would you say you have 100% faith in yourself?
I would
or
say,
do you doubt yourself from time to time?
Of course, I would say, of course, you do have some doubt in yourself, but that's where it kind of goes to like shit. I would say, you know what I mean? Have that 110% trust in yourself, where even if it does go bad, at least you trust yourself to like
handle it.
Do you know what I mean? You actually did it. I don't know. For like example, if we were to go to like a boxing gym, you start sparring, right? Before you get in there, you're like, damn, this is so scary. You're jittery. You know, we've all had that thing.
I'm gonna get my ass beat.
But then after you're done, you're like, damn, that was actually kind of cool. You want to do it again. You know what I mean?
For sure.
You go home a couple hours later, you're like, damn, I'm trying to go again. So, like, to get in that ring to actually fight, you got to trust yourself a little bit, you know?
100%.
Trust yourself to have some kind of faith you're going to beat this guy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's how I kind of look at it.
No, that's a good analogy. Relating it to like a competition,
Competition.
in particular boxing, you need some trust there.
That's what I mean. Or even like trust yourself, like success wise, family wise, everything. Like, or I would say like trust even comes naturally. Like even like growing up or whatever, you're gonna obviously trust your parents to make the right decisions for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So it kind of just grows in you.
Mm-hmm.
Like
if they show
it, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If they show that, like it just I don't know, it just comes like naturally.
I understand. If they show that they have the best interest in you, then you can trust them for that. I feel like DMX said this really well. DMX once said that I'm going to trust somebody to be what he is. You know what I mean? I think that you said that before. So I'm going to trust a snake to be a snake. I'm going to trust a good person to be a good person. I'm going to trust a thief to be a thief. I'm going to trust it for what it is.
And I would say you can kind of tell on body language too a little bit. How someone like carries themselves, or like when you meet someone, or
that's a good point.
When you like talk to someone, I would say like just the whole way that they carry themselves. Like you can just look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys ever felt that? Like
Big
where
time.
you think you can trust someone, like you kind of question it a little bit?
I'll say that I don't base trust in my life off physical appearances. I base it off mental appearances. So like you could physically look like you're closed off, arms closed. Like this is technically what it looks like to be closed off to somebody when you're talking to them, and they could have their side turned to you, but you could also have the best conversation with that person.
Yeah, I agree.
They just might physically not be open to that type of interaction. And that might come for many reasons, but
then how would it be easy to
you just and that's where Tyson was talking about. That's the little bit of the blind faith. Trust starts with blind faith. You can't first start trusting somebody without a little bit of blind faith, because at what point in a friendship do you start trusting your friend?
Mm-hmm.
And then would you call it a friendship if you don't trust your friend?
But then also you can have a better friendship with a 10-year one compared to a 1 or 2 year one. Do you know what I mean? Like if you had like a 5-year friendship, right? And you meet somebody, let's say you've had like a couple buddies that you don't really talk to, but you start talking to them within like 2-3 years, I would say sometimes that would be a better relationship than you did with the 5 to 10 year one.
Yeah, but how long of that 5 years did you actually trust that individual?
That's what I'm saying.
That to me, but that doesn't consist as a friendship. You're my friend when I trust you. If I don't trust you, you're not my friend. regardless, you're my acquaintance, and that's what I would call that.
So
That's an acquaintance.
So you need to trust someone for them to be your friend.
Yeah, if they're my acquaintance, if I don't trust them, like yeah, I'll see you on the side. I might trust you like somewhat, like 25%. I might believe some of the words that come out of your mouth to be true, but that doesn't mean that I trust you with, say, my mind.
So tell us the story where you hopped in that dude's car. Tell him drove you home. How much trust was in that one?
That was blind faith to the maximum.
Alright, story time.
Real quickly. I'm gonna explain this this quote that I heard. It was talking about how like the human and your mind and just you as a whole is it's an asset. It's not a liability or anything like that. You know what I mean? I feel like too many people view themselves as a liability, that they're almost like in harming themselves. They're gonna do something wrong. They're too stuck in that liability / negative mindset. You know what I mean?
Like, oh, I'm scared to make this mistake.
For sure. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a victim of that, man. I do it to myself too. It's a constant battle that should I do this? Should I do that? No, man, I should scrap that. I'm gonna do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like mine's constantly doing that. And it's crazy. It's a wild, vicious cycle. But the quote that I seen said that we're an asset, and we're an asset with an unlimited amount of return on investment. So with me saying that, it basically means that as much as you put into yourself, you get out. And I try to remember that when I'm doing physical activities, when I'm reading, even in the podcast, when you guys were just talking, I'm trying to be as present as I can be. Put all the thoughts that are popping up into my head aside and be like, all right, let me try and think what these guys are thinking. You know what I mean? And it's just a hard practice to do. But there was also this story that Ali Siddiq told on Joe Rogan's podcast. You guys should check it out if you want to hear it from his mouth, because he's going to tell it way funnier than I did. But he told this story about two pimps. And this is the way that he kind of learned a little bit about trust and honor and all that kind of stuff. So two pimps, they're in the middle of the road. They're arguing. Oh, you can't bring your chicks over here. This is my road. This is my street. You know what I mean? All that. I'm the only one that can run this block. Whatever the case. They're arguing. Gets to the point where it's about to be a little squabble. You know what I mean? They're about to get drawn. Exactly. They're about to get a little active. So then one of the guys takes off his jacket, takes off his hat. He's a pimp, right? He's dressed out to the nines. Takes off all his stuff, all his jewelry, all this stuff, earrings, you know what I'm saying? Just about a scrap, setting stuff to the side. Probably even ties that hair up, whatever the case. The other guy does the same thing. They get prepared to go to war. One of the guys has two guns right here. He has two guns. And you already know the deal. He won. The other guy's not armed. But he takes some things off, puts them on the car, says, let's do it. Gets about to get into a scrap with him and stuff. Unfortunately, gets his ass beat. The guy with the guns gets beat up very bad. After that, this is what he's doing. Marches over to the car where his guns are, where everything is, puts on his hat, puts on his jewelry, puts on his glasses, puts his guns back in. One of his homies is like, you're not going to shoot him, man? Pop him. You got guns. This, that. He's like, nah, he won fair and square. He beat my ass. I'm still that motherfucker, though. He said that. I'm still him, though. He was fast, wasn't he? That's what he said. So, you know what I mean?
That's actually going to respect that a lot.
100%. So that's what I mean. But what I took away from that story was that he trusted in himself so much before the fight that he didn't want to use the guns. He trusted in his hands. He had confidence. And one of the biggest points that I took away from that, besides the confidence that led up to the fight, was afterwards. Just got beat up, just got sat on his arse, and he still said, I'm still him. He beat me fair and square. I'm still him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like he's still trusting himself even though he failed at something. Even though he didn't succeed in what he might have thought he could have done, he still has faith for future references 100%. To just pull back on that and be like, hey, yeah, I did lose to him.
Yep.
It doesn't mean I changed. Doesn't mean I have any less faith in everything I step up to.
I couldn't agree more.
Yep. I can relate to that.
At nighttime, he's not going to be tripping about, oh, I should have did this, should have did that. He did everything that he could.
Yeah, I like that. You know, the guns are for like serious situations. You know what I mean? If something goes down, but if someone wants to scrap,
bro, he had trusted himself.
I'm gonna
be
honest.
Trusted himself.
I take this quote from an anime that I actually watched, but I think it's a very good quote. You shouldn't pull a gun unless you're willing to kill somebody. Guns aren't for warnings. You don't threaten somebody with a gun. If you're pulling that thing, you shoot the trigger right away.
No, I understand.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's why I feel like people, they try to use gun as a threat, but they never actually want to pull the trigger. They're never willing to actually pull that trigger. And that's just wanted to add that little.
They do, it's probably by accident.
Yeah.
And
they're scared.
I was going to say, and just to, like, they basically don't trust in themselves. You know what I mean? That's a
point. Yeah.
in like small in retrospect when if they were to pull it out and not do anything, I don't think they really trusted in
No,
themselves.
they don't.
You know what I mean? But that's another story for another time. But I really took away a lot of points from that story, that even if bosses can take losses too, you Nipsey Hussle said this in one of his songs, that you're still great in spite of your mistakes. You know what I mean? So
I
It
feel like
happens. It's
that type
natural.
of trust though, that type of trust is like an old school type of trust.
I
Like that's like a
understand.
warrior mentality.
Mhm.
You don't want to beat him unless he's at his best type.
For sure.
Like there's no point. What's the point in winning if you didn't earn it?
No, for sure.
I feel like that's the one thing I took away from that. Like he
100%.
could have took out his guns and shot him, but he didn't win.
Makes
Where's the enjoyment in that?
100%.
You know?
That's easy to do.
Yeah.
That's easy to do.
Yep.
I feel like
Sure.
that brings it back to my point so much, is because when I think about trust, and anytime that these thoughts pop into my head, I immediately think about trusting myself, because like I was saying before, and we talked about this last podcast, I always have a what I'm doing self versus what I should be doing self, so that whenever my thoughts pop into my head, we mentioned this last podcast too, you have 70,000 thoughts per day, right? So I have to grab a hold of the 5,000 or the 10,000 good thoughts, whatever the case, whatever the number is, right? I grab a hold of those good thoughts, and whenever a bad, intrusive thought comes into my head, I reinforce myself by reminding myself, hey, you're still him. You know what I mean? Like that pimp. You lost, but you're still him. Yeah, you didn't get as much shit done today, but you're still him. You're still doing good. You're still working out. I'm injured right now. I'm still okay. You know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. I didn't get the podcast finished yesterday. I had to finish this morning. Guess what? It still got done. You know what I mean? Before, maybe a couple months back, I would have been really stressed out and maybe not got a good sleep over that because I didn't finish it on Thursday. But I trusted in myself that I was going to wake up early, exactly, and put myself in the position that where I can succeed. I feel like trusting yourself goes further than just trusting in yourself. You obviously have to put the action to the thought or whatever the case. But I feel like that's a big thing, and I struggle with it all the time. I barely trusted myself until just recently, and now the podcast, the conversations I'm having with you guys, the level that I'm at when happiness, all that kind of stuff, sky high.
So to add a little extra layer on top of that, I just want to ask you guys each a question. Like if you had to put it into a percentage, how much would you say you trust yourself out of 100%? What's the number?
I'd say it's pretty high.
I think so.
Well, put a number to it. High is not a number.
That's a tough one.
So take a second.
I'm gonna say I'm 3/4 of the way there, so 75%.
75%. What about you?
I would say like in around there. I say like 85.
But I'm gonna say this for myself before I ask you. That other 25 is strong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like
That other 25 is strong. Them negative thoughts will always be stronger than positive thoughts, in my personal opinion. You know what I'm saying? So that 25 is really like a 50, but it's only 75. You know what I'm saying? I'm only thinking negative 25% of the time, but when I do, it's like, well, that thing is coming at me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, for sure. And see, I kind of like the way I grew up. I learned to just trust 100% faith in myself. So I would say that I'm at that number. I'm definitely maybe not a total 100%, but in the 90s, anywhere up there, they're all the same essentially. And I don't think anybody will ever trust themselves 100%.
No, you're always gonna have a little self-doubt.
Maybe actually, but once you're super old, once you're like 60, 50s, you've lived, you've experienced, you actually have some type of life to draw information from, then you might trust yourself 100%.
You gotta admire the elders like that. You know what I mean? I see the guys at the gym too, that when they talk, they're just so at peace and so nothing is worrying them, and I'm like, wow.
And that reminds me of something. I seen this old interview of Mac Miller, and he was in a park, and he's like, if you could be this interview was like, if you could be anybody in this park, you'd be. And he looked at the old folks that were just sitting there enjoying their day, right? You know how they do, sit on the bench and just stare blankly into the sky. And he's like, I want to be them, because they sit there in silence, and they're not anxious. They're just calm. They're enjoying life for every second, every breath, every wind that gusts across their face. Because they've built that trust in themselves. They can relax now. They don't have to be worried about, oh, am I working enough? Oh, do I have enough money? Can I support myself? They don't have those worries because the trust built up over all of those years, it's not even in their head anymore. They're just, okay, I'm just living life.
No, for sure.
And that's kind of like the thing that I wanted to bring. Everybody should get to that form of trust where you obviously you're conscientious about the things that you need to do in life, but you're not worried about them. You know that they'll get done. And that's a very hard thing for a lot of people to do, because a lot of people are, and like, I guess laziness is good in a way, but laziness is most of the time I feel you just don't trust yourself enough to do the task that you want to do. So you be lazy to avoid the fact that you don't trust yourself to necessarily do that, or to stay consistent.
Yeah.
Or to finish it out, see it through, like see the long-term vision of it. You don't trust yourself enough to evaluate the good and the bad. So
No, for sure.
you become lazy.
For sure.
You put things aside. You don't do certain things in your life.
For sure. In order to follow through on things, you have to trust that that's, like you said, something good for you. It's hard to explain that, but I can definitely understand what you guys are saying, because that's kind of what Bashar was saying too. Like you said, if you're gonna shoot for something, we can relate it to Alfonso again. Alfonso probably had so many people telling him, yeah, you can't do that, you can't do this, whoop-de-whoop. Maybe it got hard a couple of times, or maybe the teams weren't looking at him. Maybe he wasn't getting phone calls, whatever the case, right? But he trusted in himself that whole time that I'm going to do this. So, yeah, like you said, you have to trust in yourself to, like, almost not be lazy. But it sounds easy, but it's not.
Pardon? I was going to say the brain's default setting is to be lazy.
Yeah, I guess.
Your brain is desired to take the path of least resistance, scientifically. Anything against that, you're forcing yourself.
What are you gonna say?
I would say also, I kind of like more when you trust yourself more, because sometimes even when you trust someone, let's say you guys build like a friendship or whatever, the littlest thing can break it so quick. Like you guys can both have two major egos, and one little thing happens, and you guys don't even talk no more. You know what I mean? So how does that happen? Let's say you've been talking to the person for 2-3 years, whatever. One little thing can literally mess everything up. 100%. So stupid.
I'll say this. You never trusted that person.
No, you like it's not that you don't trust that person.
It's plain and simple. If you trust somebody, you trust them to tell you the hard truths instead of the sweet lies.
I would say it's more so the egos. I say it's more so the ego.
But if you trust somebody, your ego has nothing to do with it. You don't need to be better than somebody you trust.
You're right. But at the same time, they want both parties want that, you know what I mean?
Then they
you're gonna be that you're gonna have that competitiveness in you. I want to be better than I want to do things better than you do better than me, right? Like let's say we're having a game, you want to do better than me, do you not?
Yeah, but
you know what I mean? But you want to win. You like it's not gonna be bad to where like you're gonna beat each other up for it, but you're gonna still want to be on top. You want to do good.
I'll say this: if you trust somebody, your ego won't get in the way.
No, I agree with that. It should not be in the way.
Yeah,
it should not be in the way.
If you trust somebody, you also have to take the bad with the good. Like you can't expect somebody to always tell you sweet things.
No, and like,
but you gotta trust that they'll always tell you the truth. However they feel, regardless of whether they feel negatively towards you or they feel happy towards you, you gotta trust that they're gonna tell you that. So if they don't like you, say, hey, you come up to me, Jackson, you're being a like, maybe I am being a bitch. I gotta trust that. I gotta trust that that's your view. I do have an ego. Obviously, I don't want to be a bitch. Obviously, I might come back. Obviously, I might come back. I might come back with a rebuttal, like, hey, no, fuck you.
Yeah.
But in my head, I'll be like, okay, I'll evaluate my actions. Be like, okay, was I actually being a bitch to you today? And if so, thank you for telling me. Like, it's a hard truth. It's hard.
I think it's easier said than done.
It's hard to digest, but if I trust you to tell me the truth, then that's not an opinion. That's fact. What you're telling me is a fact. You're telling me that I am being a bitch, so I have to take that at the face value of what it is. You're just telling me how you feel. And you can't be mad at somebody for telling you how you feel, because if you're mad at them for telling you how to feel, you don't trust them.
What do you say, Tyson?
No, I agree with you guys. That's a hard balance, because I can relate it. Yeah. Jeez Louise. I can relate to when if Brianna were to say something, say I hurt Brianna, and she tells me, hey, you hurt me. Instead of me getting defensive, you know what I mean, and letting my ego hop in the way, which happens all the time, and I get defensive.
Shouldn't, though. You should be like an open book. Like, it's all right. That happens.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's hard to do, though.
And that's when you build trust with somebody, that becomes more natural.
Yeah, but would you say a relationship like yours between your two homies is two different things, though?
It is.
If you get in an argument with him, you're going to want to win that. Do you know what I mean? You won't.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
You won't really man up and say, yeah, you beat me in that one. You know what I mean? You could, though. You could. Because you may not have ego. Like, if you're a very nice guy, you're okay with losing. You're okay with, like, getting beaten that certain thing. You're going to probably say, you know what I mean? But sometimes I've been in situations where even when I'm not right, I still gonna fight it.
Yeah,
I don't care. It's just
because
so
it's there.
natural.
I feel like that's just because
Whoever
whoever you're fighting with, I don't feel like you just haven't built that level of trust with them. Like
So-
that deep level of trust where like you two are gonna help each other get better.
that should be it.
And
You know what I mean?
when you have that deep level of trust, certain arguments, certain issues, you have to realize that your ego can't be in there.
Can't.
You can't trust somebody and have an ego at the same time.
Ego is huge. Ego
'Cause-
gets in the way of trust all the time.
Because if you trust somebody, like I said, you gotta trust them to tell the truth. And if you have an ego, you don't want to hear the truth.
Mm-hmm.
People
That's
who
true.
have an ego want to hear sweet lies.
I know what you're
They want to
saying.
hear, "Oh, you're the best. You're doing
good.
so
Like probably
good.
yes men.
Oh, you're not.
Yeah,
oh,
yes
you're
man, for sure.
you're not going down in value at all.
Oh, I know what you're
You're
saying.
just getting better."
So I want to touch on something you said. So you said that if something happens between a friendship and stuff like that, and the trust is lost, you don't think that the trust was there fully?
Depends on how it's lost. I feel if it's lost as simply as like what Bashar's example was, like the 3-year relationship or the 5-year relationship was like the 2-year relationship is better than the 5-year relationship. I feel like in that sense, if those 2 years were better than the other 5 years, you didn't trust that person for 5 years.
Oh, I understand.
So in a sense, if you've built that relationship for 2 years and you actually built that trust, bringing it back to the vase, if you chip it, it can still be repaired.
Oh, 100%.
Little things here and there, but you never know where the other person's line is.
No, I understand.
You gotta some people might draw a line in the sand and say, you crossed this line, it's over. Regardless of how small that line may be, that's their line.
Mm-hmm.
As soon
That
as you
makes
cross
sense.
that, they can't trust you anymore.
I
Well, you're
understand.
kind of like, even if it's like kind of in a relationship thing, you guys get in an argument, it's kind of like breaking like a arm for say, you know what I mean? You're not going to leave the arm broken there, you know? You're going to want to have to repair it. It may not be the same, but you're going to leave it there broken, you know what I mean?
I understand.
Oh,
I
yeah.
That was a
understand.
very weird example.
Or you're
No,
gonna,
but I know what you're saying.
you know, you're going to try to repair it. And
I understand. If you
Make it
spill
work
something
again.
in somebody's house, you're not just gonna leave it there. You're
That's
probably gonna
what I
clean
mean.
it up.
Look, if
No,
you
I
guys get in
understand.
an argument in that relationship where it's like a bad one, or like, for example, my parents, I've seen my parents get in major fights. You know what I'm saying? Big
Yeah.
ones where they're like on the brink of fucking leaving.
Divorce,
You know what I mean? But like,
Relationships, I feel like every relationship, unless you cheat without specific boundaries, because obviously some relationships, they allow their partners to have other partners.
That's
And if you like that, that's up to you. You got to make your boundaries in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like every relationship, you should start the relationship with stating your boundaries.
Yeah.
And if somebody knows your boundaries, you have to trust that they're going to follow that. And when they don't follow your boundaries, then it has to be over.
Yeah. Then it gets
How-
brought up.
If you lie to me once, what's to say you're not going to do it again? And what's to say you're not going to do it again until I figure out you're lying? So once you lie, who knows how many times you've already lied to me?
Yeah.
Now I got to start going back in my head, reevaluating every single situation that you possibly could have lied to me.
No, I completely understand where you're
And
coming
that's how I look at it with relationships wise, like an actual partner. Obviously, we're friends and we have a relationship as a 3 and we
Yeah.
have relationships individually,
from. Yeah.
but those relationships aren't as tied together as a partner. I don't see you guys every day.
Yeah.
My happiness my emotions aren't necessarily tied to your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a partner, your emotions are one.
100%.
They're tied. They're dependent on each other. Regardless of how dependent you are, as soon as you get in a
you
relationship,
depend on one another.
you depend on one another
Yeah.
for a certain degree. So that's a little bit more of an extreme version of trust.
Trust in a relationship is
Very
Mm-hmm.
big.
crazy, man. It's so hard because
would you say that's the most important thing?
yeah, I would, because like you guys were saying too when we were talking about it earlier, there's so many other things that come along with that, like with loyalty and commitment and all that kind of stuff. I feel like
I
that's
just
the
wanna-
most important of a relationship.
I just want to add one more thing. Like,
Uh-huh.
I think that trust and respect are the same thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
I think that a relationship, you need to have trust, respect, and loyalty. You don't need love in a relationship. Love is a very small emotion in the grand scheme of what love actually
But
is.
what
But
if that-
sometimes,
go
go ahead.
ahead,
No,
go
you go. You go.
I'd say, what if that brings all of that though?
I was gonna say it too. Like sometimes love is a synonym of that because, like, in order to have love, you need to be loyal. You need to trust them.
Yeah,
You need to.
but like Bashar said with his parents, when they're fighting, they don't necessarily love each other in that moment. but they respect each other. They trust each other. They're loyal to each other.
That's true.
Regardless of whether the love is there or not, the love is just a happiness emotion.
I feel like if we were to go back though, and if for that one podcast that we kind of talked about love, I feel like it would, some of the words that you're saying would also be repeated then.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I feel like
You're right.
even if you, I completely understand where you're coming from, but I feel like even if you're arguing with somebody, like if I'm arguing with Brianna, I think that I do still truly love her in that time.
You do.
Because my ego might get in the way for a short period of time, and I might be like, no, you did this. No,
Mhm.
you did this. But then for a brief second, I'll take 5 minutes, I'll go upstairs, reevaluate, and be like,
And
man, what am I doing? I go downstairs and be like, I'm sorry.
And
This is what happened.
That one split second where your ego goes in, that's the second that I'm talking about. That love's not there. And
I
that's
feel like
where
it's
you
there,
gotta,
it just gets overpowered.
and that's where you gotta rely on the respect. And that's why you go upstairs. You're like, wait, let me cool off. Let me respect her. Let me actually evaluate her information and what she brought to the table. Let me examine it, and let me realize maybe I'm at fault here. And then now you bring love back into it because you you accepted your failures
Yeah.
and you accepted her point of view.
Oh, I definitely
But
understand.
the point where it's like, where you're talking about, like, where you're really actually mad. Like, you're genuinely, your ego is telling you, hey, what is going on here? Like, do I still want to be with this person? That's how mad you can be. And like, the love isn't there in that exact moment.
You don't
but
think
all
so?
the other emotions are.
You don't think it's there in that moment?
I feel like the ego gets in the way.
I feel like the ego gets in the way. I agree with that. But I wouldn't say that it goes away, though, because I feel like that's so strong to say.
Okay, I would say it's blocked out.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's blocked
That's
out.
what I was going to say.
It's
It
not
gets
there in
overpowered,
that present
right?
second.
Yeah, I guess
No, I understand.
And all those other, like, respect, you never, once you respect somebody, that doesn't go away.
I
No
understand.
matter how mad you are at that person, I could hate a motherfucker. If I've ever respected you in my life, even if we don't talk, I'll still respect you.
I understand. And see, that's why the only reason why I wanted to say that is because I feel like if you get rid of an emotion like that, it's never going to be able to come back. You know what I mean? Like if I were to stop loving Brianna, I'm not going to love her again. You know what I'm saying? For me, if I were to stop loving somebody, see it. We're going our separate ways. Good luck. You know what I mean?
And that's kind of what I mean by, like, love is kind of a temporary emotion.
Oh, for sure. I think that I agree with you. And I think that almost all of our emotions are temporary because like you were saying, I feel like depending on where your ego is or what the situation is at hand, certain emotions get blocked. So then one time I might be super sympathetic and love might be all of a sudden there. And then my ego gets in the way. Boom. Love is put on the back burner. And then I'm sad. And then confidence is on the back burner. And then confidence goes up. And I'm like, why was I sad for? You know what I'm saying? I feel like the emotions block each other. But I completely understand with what you're saying. So I do agree with that. It's crazy how the emotions, it's almost like that movie. What's that movie, man?
Oh,
with
the
the
Pixar
feelings.
one.
Yeah, with the feelings.
Oh, that's such a good movie.
Damn.
I'll be above here.
Great movie though, because it shows you that, like you said,
Which
depending
one
on
is
what
it again?
happens, the ones where the feelings take control
Yeah, it's
of the
little
brain.
girl's mind. It's the little girl's mind, and she has anger that's smashing all the buttons, and sadness is in the corner, and then sadness has control of all the buttons, and madness is in the corner.
Yeah.
That's
Whichever
exactly
one
how
is
it
driving
is.
the boat, that's how you're gonna feel, man.
Yep.
And that's one of the points that I had written in my notes. Ow. I had that written in my notes so that when those thoughts, like we were saying, the 70,000 thoughts, the bad thoughts come in the head, I have to take the good thoughts and remind myself. I put those ones back in the driver's seat. You know what I mean? And remind myself that, hey, I control how I feel. If I'm feeling sad right now, let's figure out why. Yeah, there's a root of it, but then let's change that because I can single-handedly, I know it sounds crazy, for everybody watching too, but single-handedly you can be like, no, I'm changing my energy. I was sad today. Why was this happen? Did this happen? Okay, we're changing that in the future. Going forward, we're changing that. Boom, better energy.
Yep, and that's
You
the
can do
trust
that.
in yourself.
100%, that's trusting yourself.
Once you trust yourself, anything's possible.
That's a good damn point. I never really thought of it like that, but that is trusting yourself. Because you're trusting yourself that you have the strength and the mental capacity to switch it like that. When before I let myself get in a mopey mood and
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people, when they make promises to themselves and they constantly break the promise that they made to themselves, they lose a little bit of trust every single time. And when you lose trust with yourself, I feel like that's the hardest amount of trust to get back.
That's a good point because through physical activities and through hard, not necessarily just physical, but hard mental
emotional,
things.
all
Yeah.
of those types of.
That's how you gain trust with yourself.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Those points of your life where your back's against the wall and you got to make that decision, that's where you gain the trust. And if you don't have that trust, that's where a lot of people make the wrong decisions in life. Or a lot of people, maybe instead of making the wrong decision, they don't make a decision at all. You
100%.
know?
I was going to say, sometimes when it comes to the situations when you're fighting yourself like that, and instead of making, like you were saying, when you don't make a decision or you're going to make a bad decision, good decision, I feel like you kind of have to, I know it sounds crazy, but if something's telling you no, don't do it, go ahead and do it, man. You know what I mean? Depending on the situation, but
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. I mean, obviously not when it comes to crash your damn car or go hurt somebody, but I mean, when it comes, I relate this to, I'm waking up in the morning. At 4 o'clock, my alarm rings, 4 o'clock in the morning. Everything in my body is telling me, go back to bed, go back to bed. You're so warm. All this stuff. And I have to tell myself, no, I'm going this way, son. You know what I mean?
It's hard, but once you're good to go.
You're good to go.
I also feel like, I don't know, I have a really good relationship with my gut. Whatever my gut tells me, I usually do.
Oh, that's a good point.
And that's what I feel like people don't trust their gut enough.
Before you continue on that, I want to say this because I forgot about that. I watched a Nipsey Hussle interview just the other day, and it said that he would tell a younger version of himself to trust his gut more because sometimes he would overthink things, try to find facts, try to find proof of why something is a good idea, and maybe he missed out on opportunity in the meantime. So like you said, you have to develop that feeling with trusting your gut.
And I'll tie that in with me as well because I can relate to that, what you just explained with Nipsey Hussle. Every time I didn't trust my gut, I got fucked. Every single time.
You're like, damn, I should have did it.
Yep. And that's where that happened young in my life. So that's where I came to the realization that I would rather make the decision and trust my gut than not trust my gut or have somebody else make the decision. Because at the end of the day, if I made the decision or my body made the decision, I can accept that.
No, I understand that.
Because it was me.
For
if it was somebody else, then it's like, now you start putting blame. Now you start pointing fingers. When you point one, 3 pointing back.
100%.
So instead of pointing one, just point all 4.
Yeah, exactly.
You're responsible for everything that happens to you in your life. That's the end of the discussion. Nobody else is responsible for it. Aside from maybe the first 6 years of your life. Until you're like 7 years old and you actually start making kind of your own decisions and start developing your own character, everything you do is your fault.
100%. No, 100%. It's so crazy how in control and out of control of our own selves that we are. I'm telling you guys, there's something I battle with every single day, man. Learning how to control my thoughts, learning how to listen to my gut, trust myself, not feel pressure, because if you don't trust yourself, then you feel pressure. But you need to feel a certain amount of pressure. And I also need to trust myself, but not trust myself too much. I need to have a little bit of doubt, you know what I mean? To kind of push myself to that limit, because I feel like it's like a muscle when you work out and stuff. You're working out your biceps, whatever, you want to kind of tear your muscle, right? So you can rebuild. So I kind of want to tear that trust and the boundaries just there, like just touch it. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to edit for 5 hours today, but I only got 4.5. So I'm like, damn, I did good, but you know what I mean? I can go that little bit further. You know what I'm saying? Just breaking that boundary. And it's such a hard limit to get to, because there's a long time where sorry, just 1 second. There's a long time where I would get to that limit, but I was like extremely, extremely upset at myself that I didn't push past it. But I have to realize that it's a limit for a reason. You know what I mean?
feel like those types of outlook on trust with yourself is better viewed through a different window, like a friend. You gotta trust your buddy. Say we're at the gym, and let's say I get 5 reps, but I can get 10. I gotta trust you to tell me hey, no, what are you doing? You gotta get those extra 5. That different viewpoint in my head's telling me, nah, this is it. But in your head, you can see that I can do more. And that's where I feel like those types of boundary pushing are easier to deal with when other people are pushing them.
Like similar-minded people.
Yeah.
That's how we all work so well.
Like I feel like to some degree you do need other people in your life to help push you to a certain degree. Because if you get comfortable, that's not a good place to be.
I even use the same example I used before. I don't know if I said it on here, but even kind of like I kind of say, if you have like an alcoholic father or whatever, or whatever the case may be, it's either you're gonna go that route and be like alcoholic too, or you're gonna not want to do that. So you gotta kind of trust yourself. It's like to obviously know what the better thing is. Do you know what I mean? Which route you really want to go. And so that's why I kind of just like think that's like a not bad example to use in that kind of situation.
Yeah, you did say that before. If you have alcoholic friends, you're probably gonna be alcoholic.
Yeah, or if we're surrounding yourself like kind of like a good group of individuals, it's like you're only gonna want to have good things happen, like good positive vibes. You know what I mean? Something does go wrong, you can kind of go back and kind of forget about it or talk about it and help and
100%.
try
Get different viewpoints on life.
You know what I mean?
When you guys tell me about your streams, it does nothing but motivate me. When you guys are saying how you guys are so many days in a row doing streams and maybe you make money on a stream or you did 8 hours this day, I'm like, damn, that's perfect, man. That gives me motivation to sit down and edit for 8 hours. You know what I'm saying?
Because a very good outcome can come out of it. You know
For
what I mean?
sure. It makes it a lot easier to grind too. Like if I'm going to do anything super hard, go on a long hike, hard workout, I know that I got 2 homies that are down to do it. And multiple people, a girlfriend, brothers, all that kind of stuff.
So that takes us like a round circle to Bashar's point over there where ego is sometimes good. Like you want to be better than the other person.
Yeah.
And like, you know how I said you have to trust your friend to give you that hard news, to give you the hard truths. And you also have to trust your friend to push you to be better than you are. And you want to have some type of competition.
Makes you only better for the both of you.
Like,
know what I mean?
healthy competition is good.
Yeah.
As long as you have trust
You can control it.
that person has the better outlook for you.
It's
Like,
crazy.
I gotta trust that you want good for me. Because if I can't trust you want good for me, then the egos, that's where, like you said, the egos get in the way. Because you never trust
when
it.
we go on our bike ride where you're going up the hill, you can do it really faster than I could, or you know what I mean?
You're like, yeah, damn.
God damn, I want to do the same shit, you know what I mean? So it makes you just like pushes you more, and that's why I think it works.
We each have things that we all excel in, and each other are trying to catch up to that. So then it's kind of cool because I feel like the positions are always going to change. You know what I mean? Like maybe I'll surpass you in that, but then you'll surpass me in something else. And then Bashar's going to end up taking over. And then, you know what I mean?
Or even to trust myself to go down a hill with sandals and, you know what I mean?
Hey,
should we do a story time to finish her off? Or
dude,
what?
we didn't have your best intention there, man. We said, yo, you got it.
Yeah, exactly.
No, listen, we did until Bashar started going down the first quarter of the hill.
You didn't trust yourself.
No, you didn't trust yourself.
Jackson went down first and said, watch out, watch out.
There's a jump. Bashar says, okay, sitting down,
Flip-flops.
sandals, no brakes.
Sad.
Boom.
Sitting down.
And there's a people on the bench.
Yeah, at that point, you'd had trust in yourself. You had a little bit too much.
Too much. You did have too much.
That was an example where there's too much, and he,
Did.
Yeah,
for sure. What I want to say real quickly, I want to relate it back to, like you said, you have to have people that want your best interests around you. That's like a boxer and a trainer or something like that.
Yeah.
If I'm training and my right hand drops every time, you better tag me or tell me your right hand is dropping, because if I go into the fight and that right hand is dropping, probably going to get beat up or slapped or whatever the case, badly injured. So you have to have people around you that, like you said, even if it's going to be the hard, bad news, like, yo, your feet are flat. You know what I mean? Whatever the case, you got to tell them. But at the same time, I feel like there's like a hard way to communicate that too. You know what I mean? Because I feel like there's a certain amount of trust that has to go into the trainer's hand in that situation too. You know what I mean?
yeah, you have to trust your trainer.
Yeah, and I feel like the trainer has 100%, like you're saying, but I don't know how to say this, how I'm trying to say.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the trainer has to have trust in their fighter that they can communicate them things without like an ego getting involved, like you were saying. It's hard to say.
It's a mutual relationship.
With it.
For
You
sure.
got the trainer has to trust that the boxer is gonna take the information that they give him and use it in the right way that they meant it.
Constructive criticism is hard to take sometimes.
Like most people can't take constructive criticism.
It's hard.
I'm all for constructive criticism as long as it's constructive.
That's what I mean. I like
a
it
lot
to
of
be said
people just
politely.
criticize.
Yeah.
They say, "Oh, you're bad at this," but they don't tell you how to fix it.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Say,
yeah.
"Okay, I'm bad at it, so how can I improve?" That's without improving, that's just criticism. It's constructive when you tell them how to change. When you give them an example of maybe how I can do it better or who else does it better, so now I can go evaluate what they do and see how they do it better.
All right, so that's OneThird's take on trust and believing in ourselves and all the above, everything that comes under and above that, because there's so many different avenues when it comes to that. But yeah, that's our opinion on that. But with that being said, I want you guys to let us know what you guys think, because trust is different to everybody. So you can sound off in the comments and let us know anything, questions, topic ideas, all that kind of stuff. Let us know.
Don't be shy.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be
Only
reading
getting
them.
started, baby. Only getting started. We're
Only
gonna be
started is
coming
right.
some juicy,
We'll be back every week.
juicy McGoosers are on the way.
Hell yeah.
We appreciate you guys.
Yep.
Peace and love.
Once a
We
week.
out.